Dear
Hmm.
Bashar, I'm very happy that you found time to talk about the books that you published in the last 4 years. Since
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
since when you became interested in archaeological and cultural sites? Because three of your books that you published deal with
Well,
Jordanian and Middle Eastern archaeological and cultural sites. How it started?
I'm multicultural, so I'm half English, half Jordanian. And when I was a kid growing up, whenever we had family friends coming to town, we would, pack everyone in the car and we'd all go out to these sites. So I've been playing amongst these archaeological and historical sites since I was a kid, and they've always held a sense of mystery to me. That's where it actually came from. And then later on, when I discovered photography, it was a means of rediscovering these sites through my own lens, as I was exploring them.
What do you think about the heritage protection in our area? Because unfortunately, due to political instability, many of these sites are threatened by military conflicts.
Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, in the region, it's very sad, and the rise of like black market, antiquity smuggling and destruction has been crazy. Like over the last 10 years, even for me, I'm recently new to all of this, and I've seen changes in sites and destruction to sites in Jordan and elsewhere throughout the world. And I think that was brought about by this black market that's emerged from Syria, but I could be wrong. Um, and it's disappointing. It's very, very heartbreaking to see these kinds of things. Even when I first started my project 10 years ago, the first book that I did about Jordan, I was traveling all around the country photographing sites constantly, and I would constantly run into looters. I would run into people with metal detectors who didn't care about the site. All they cared about was what they were, what they could find. And of course, they never found anything. They'd find a missing coin here, some pottery, things like this.
They came,
I
listen, they came too late to the
Yeah,
site.
yeah. And this is whenever I run into them, I try to impose or reflect a sense of, I sit and tell them, I say to them, you think your grandparents didn't look, you didn't think the Ottomans didn't look, you didn't think the Romans didn't look. Everyone was looking throughout their life for gold and things. You're not the first people to be looking for this stuff, and that's why you'll never find anything decent. And it's always this legend where it's what do you call it? My cousin's cousin found a treasure trove, or and then there's of course the massive urban legend where the greater what do you call it? The greater conspiracy where the government has found it and is using it and hiding it, but no one ever has proof.
Of course. Uh, did you collaborate with foreign institutes and prominent local and international scholars during your research and during your venture?
Um, yeah. Well, I mean, I've been building a good friend network over the last 10 years. I think being a photographer and like a historical photographer and a enthusiast for history, but not a what do you call it? Not a historian by profession or archaeologist by
Yeah.
profession. I'm welcomed a lot in circles. So in the beginning, when I first started, yeah, it started out with a single guidebook, and that became two guidebooks, then several guidebooks, and then I brought in help from the departments of antiquities, from professors on certain sites, giving me direction and help. And now I like have a really good network of people. Whenever I need to find an answer for something, I can easily just either send an email or pick up a phone or send a WhatsApp message, and I usually get an answer really quickly. So I'm very happy with how that has come along.
So your first book was a map and a lens,
Yeah.
Jordan
So
sites unseen, stories untold.
yeah. So a map and a lens is basically the name that I operate under because I don't really like to put my name on products and things. So like that was like what I operate. I'm the map and a lens guy. And the idea from the first book was to show the world and locally and internationally that Jordan's not about the three golden sites, you know, the golden
Yeah.
triangle as they call it, you know, Petra, Jerash, and sometimes the desert castle, sometimes Ajloon. You know,
True.
there's thousands of sites here. There's hundreds of sites that I mean, the book has about 130 sites, discussed. I now, 5, 6 years later, have reached around 250 sites documented and photographed.
Once the former Director General Jamhawi said that there are 27,000 archaeological sites in Jordan, well-documented archaeological sites, and 100,000 sites altogether.
Yeah.
And of course, we have.
I usually like to argue this because it's a bit misleading for the general person, like, you know, a general person who's being introduced to it. They think like there's, you know, 100,000 Petras out there, that they're not,
Yeah.
you know, like so there's in my opinion, there's about 200 sites that you can explore with stones, with inscriptions, with things to have fun in. And the rest are remnants, you know, we have a lot of in the last we have a lot of inscriptions. We have a lot of like there's also like they register, like if you find a site that has nothing in it except for like surface scatter and lithics, you know, remnants of settlement, they count that as a site. So by my personal experience from being in the field for the past 10 years, yeah, it's about 200 plus thousands of other sites that are, filled with, where you can just walk around and find, arrowheads, pottery shards, things like this.
When I mentioned the DOA, how was your collaboration with the Department of Antiquities?
I have a few contacts there who are really, really supportive of what I do. The first book, I approached them halfway through the making of the book, and they sorted out access to sites that I couldn't go without help. That was very good. And then later on, I did one of the other major projects that I did was where I photographed a lot of the sites in Jordan at night. This is a project I did in 2017. So I took about 20 cultural sites and I explored them, with the stars. So it was called the Stars and Stone Project. And they basically gave me and supported me throughout that whole thing, gave me access, notified all the guards, and processed the paper. It was wonderful. But on the long run, like the interaction is kind of minimal because what I do is not what they do, I go to them and they know me and I donate books to them, but beyond that, there's not a major exchange there.
Do you think the exchange between you and the DOA is necessary or
in certain
advisable
circumstances,
in a way for your research, or you can
uh,
prepare books without dealing directly with the DOA?
oh yeah, no, I don't. Well, in terms of like, it depends on the project, obviously. So like, if it's on the ground photography, you do need help from them sometimes, But then, you also have the royal court who can also intervene, who can help. But basically they help by asking the DOA for permission and things like this. So it depends on the project. It depends on what I'm doing, but I'll say about 80% of the time I don't really ask. I don't really approach them. Usually the sites are open during the day, so I just go in without help from them because they're all monitored and I know where they are.
True.
Hmm.
What are your favorite sites? Or this is
I
maybe a
always
difficult question.
No, I actually have two very favorite sites that I love. First of all is Qasr Bashir, which is in the south near Qatrana, and it's the most well-preserved Roman fort of its age. 106 AD it was constructed, and it's maintained its structure since then. It's not been modified much over the centuries. And the setting is gorgeous. Like it's kind of difficult to get to. You need a 4x4. So yeah, that was one of my favorites, and it was literally the first site that I photographed for my first book. So it holds a certain special feeling for me. The other site is Abila or Guelbe up in the north. It's one of the Decapolis cities, and it's just the location of it. It's the fact that it's so remote and nobody really goes to it. And it still maintains that sense of romanticism with the, the buried theater and the hillside, the tombs on the other side, and the fact that like very little people, only the locals go there camping. So those are my two big favorite sites in Jordan.
You probably been to Huwara in the south.
Yes.
What do you think about the
Yeah,
preservation of the
yeah.
sites? I think it's not exploited enough, and not many people are going to Hawara. I'm talking about
I
tourists.
mean, I mean, you mean it's Humayma, right?
Yeah, Humayma, yes.
Are you referring? Yeah, Humayma Huwara. Yeah. So I think it's one of the, like, I class it as like a C-list site because its claim to fame is more along the Islamic,
Mhm.
what do you call it? Islamic history and heritage, as it being,
True.
the site where the Abbasids planned their overthrow, and it also has a little bit of a fun legend where it was built by the Nabateans because the Nabatean king had a vision of a man wearing riding a white camel. But it's, I don't think, I visited it several times because of its like historical importance, but like as a site, there are more important and more impressive things to see on that highway for tourists. So yeah, I don't think, unless you are passionate about the history and want to go see this site, I would recommend it to people. But like I've never actually recommended it to tourists as they're coming and going.
I mean, they have a tourist center there, but
Yeah, they have a museum.
they have a museum which serves for locals to smoke hubble bubble and sleep inside. I've been there in
Yeah.
2017 with a Canadian archaeologist.
Team.
Yes.
Yeah, it has one of the beautiful things that archaeologically speaking is that it has like a 12 kilometer water duct that's built by the Nabateans, which is really unique for that area. But that, because I like to class, like, this is my own sort of internal classification, but you have like A sites, B sites, and C sites. So like I
Mhm.
would class that as a C site. Only go there if you're really passionate about, Abbasid history, about Nabatean history.
Okay, but they have a Roman military camp and structures that served a military commander of the camp.
Yeah, yeah, that's true, but they're still better. I mean, if you want
Yeah,
more military camps, you go to Bashir, you go to Lejeune, you go to some of the more, established
of course.
sites. Yeah,
Yeah, these days they're planning to make Al Jamal more attractive to visitors and tourists. I haven't
Oh,
been
well,
there for a while.
the job they did out at Jamal is spectacular,
Yeah.
honestly. Over the years, I've seen the progress that they've been doing and how they've upgrading it, and I'm sure it will get UNESCO World Heritage status next. I think that's the next big target. Um, I'm not too keen on World Heritage, but on that organization, like in terms of the requirements they have on that stuff, but like it helps, and like the center they have there is beautiful. The way they've structured the pathing, the signage, it's great.
So things are improving because the last time I went there was in 2017, in February 2017.
Ah, well, that was
And
when they were starting. Yeah,
yes, I just came when they announced the beginning of revamping the site.
yeah.
Of course, Al Jamal is a huge site with lots of structures
Yeah.
and buildings from Roman, Byzantine period, and later periods.
No, it's honestly, out of all of the restoration that I've seen and all the work they've done, I think Jamal really deserves what the efforts that they've put into it.
What should be done in order to popularize other sites, and is it possible to establish a subtle balance between commercial aspects of tourism and preservation of authenticity and preservation of monuments? Because we all know that if you
Well,
have a big influx of tourists, it can negatively
yeah.
affect the site.
Yeah, for sure. For example, from what I've learned, Petra hasn't been like it's got to like a hold on excavation on the center of the city like for since 1994, I think, correct?
Mhm.
I don't know if you
Yeah,
know this.
yes,
Um, and that's such a shame because what 90% of the city is still buried. We don't know, you know, that what's underneath all the rubble and things like this, like it's uncovered. Um, but like it's in places like Al Jamal, I think, you know, there's been years and years of research and excavation and work there, and the site is big enough for further work to be done, you know. So there is a fine line from what I understand between the two worlds, but you know, it's one of those things that if you don't get the attention of, you know, tourism on it, the site will fall into disrepair and looting will happen and things like this. So like if it's got, and that also builds for, because you know, a lot of the looting happens because of the local, it's the local inhabitants who are looking for the gold and the, whatever they want to find.
yeah.
But if they have a good income and they see that these sites are, you know, easily preserved, like are generating more money for them than the actual looting, they'll take care of it even more. So there is a fine line between these two. And I do think, you know, in terms of like how we can, you know, expand, I think like doing things like my first project book, like introducing all these sites to people, you know, creating interesting attractions. So, you know, for example, creating an interesting dark zone near one of these sites. So the tour companies and the tour buses will have a reason not only to go to Al Jamal, for example, but to go to a dark zone nearby. A dark zone being like a place where they can see the night sky and the Milky Way and things like this. Or alternatively, like, you know, a Bedouin camp or so things like this, you know, like there has to be like multiple attractions because currently everything is built about around the Golden Triangle. And you know, we saw Jordan suffers from this thing where we're shadowed by Palestine and the tourism in Jerusalem, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
because a lot of people come to the region. So basically, you know, Jordan's always tagged on, and this has been that this way for 20 years. I mean, I also work in the hospitality industry, so I also know about tourism. And you know, it's always been like, you know, in before the Syrian civil war, it was, you know, 1 week in Syria, 1 week in Palestine, and then a couple of days in Jordan, 2 days, 3 days in Jordan. And it got even worse because then it's like, you know, 2 weeks in Palestine and a day trip to Jerash and to Petra in Jordan. We have to develop this knowledge. Like the more people know about what treasures we have, the more they're inclined to spend more time exploring these treasures and like the history behind them. So that's really important.
Maybe you haven't heard about that, but there are initiatives of restoring the Ottoman Hijaz Railway between Damascus and Saudi Arabia. This is what they're talking about.
Uh,
And you
well,
have to
I mean,
listen, this
I'm
is,
laughing because they
of
announce this
course,
every 5 years. Every 5 years, there's a deal with Saudi Arabia that we're going to restore the Hijaz
yeah,
Railway, and they make a big deal, a big thing, and nothing ever happens. I would love, you know, they in, for example, in Europe, you have the Orient Express. In
of
South
course.
Africa, you have the I forget the name of this particular train line, but they have these luxury train lines where people get to relive the old railways. You know, if someone would like invest, we could have this sort of thing where, you know, we have a branch going off to Petra. People could take the train to Petra rather than taking the desert highway and relive that romantic notions of train travel in the Levant. I wish they would do it. Like I, you know, I fully and wholeheartedly encourage it. In fact, one of my dreams is to make a book about the Hijaz.
But there's another thing about the Hijaz Railway. Certain circles
Mm.
negotiate the restoration of Hijaz Railway and restoration of the branch from Haifa. So Haifa will be connected with Muscat and Dubai through Hijaz Railway and Saudi network of train lines. I don't think
Yeah,
it's feasible at the moment because of the political context.
yeah, of course, of
But
course. I mean, like,
according to some
mm, go on.
estimates, if they establish commercial railway between Persian Gulf and Indian Ocean, Riyadh, Jordan, Palestinian territories, and our friendly neighbors in Haifa, that would
Hmm.
generate 200 billion US dollars annually.
I have absolutely no doubt that that would be the truth.
Yeah,
Even without the Haifa connection, Damascus, like the original, like Damascus,
and of course you
Jordan,
can connect Damascus.
Saudi connection.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And a
it-
railway, man. When you go to Europe, all you do is railways. Like it's
of
such an
course.
easy system, and it's such a wonderful system, and it like and I'm in love with railways. So like a
Lots of
4 hour
people
car
are in
ride.
love with the railway. I
Yeah,
personally prefer railway over planes
yeah,
and buses. Railway is
yeah,
my
for sure.
favorite
And like
mean of
a
transportation.
4 hour train ride feels like 2 hours versus a 4 hour car ride.
And you're more mobile in the train. You can walk around, you can go to a restaurant, you can
Yeah,
sit,
yeah.
order food.
Bigger windows. Yeah,
Yes, in the bus you are stuck on your seat.
yeah, for
The
sure.
same happens in a plane. So
Yeah,
according to some circles, and we're talking about American investors, business people, American Israeli business people who operate in our region, who operate in the Gulf, who operate in Saudi Arabia. One of their plans is to reestablish that railway and connect Hijaz Railway
yeah.
with the Persian Gulf. We'll see how it goes, because as you said, every 5 years,
This,
every few years, they are blabbing the same thing and nothing happens.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Every few years, the same. I think I've attended maybe 3 events in the last 15 years,
Well,
where there's this big announcement and like these things. But
I mean,
yeah, well, I mean,
yeah,
of course, we need the political situation. But forget all of that. Like even restoring the Hajaz Railway for
yeah.
Amman, for Irbid, Amman, Petra, Aqaba will will make a huge boost, and it will it will generate jobs. But like the problem is getting the money in for this. And like for example, I was talking to a friend who's from Kenya,
Yeah.
and Kenya made a big deal with China, and China came in and did the whole system for them. Within about 5 years, they had a train. It went from no train line to a train system that connects multiple cities. So it's it's not out of reach. It's not out of in the realm of what do you call it? Uh,
No, this is
fantasy to do
a
something like
realistic
this.
option. It's
Yeah,
not unrealistic. I mean, I was skeptical a bit about the bus line in Amman. I remember I was discussing that with my cousin, who's an engineer, and he was very pro the new bus line that connects different parts of the city. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Same here.
it functions actually. I'm using this.
And clearly, people needed it.
Yeah, yeah. I use this line when I go to Abdon to see my brother who lives there. So
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes people who are not qualified, like me, to judge whether some engineering projects are going to be successful or not, shouldn't be listened to. They should
yeah,
they should favor the opinion of experts and engineers, and unqualified individuals like myself shouldn't be negative
yeah. No, no,
and,
no.
and bicker and nag all the time.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
agree. I agree.
you just finished the book about the Noble Sanctuary in East Jerusalem, in occupied Jerusalem.
Yes, my book number 3.
Book number 3, yes.
Yeah.
How much time it took you to finish the book on the Noble Sanctuary?
So I tell people it took me 3 years, but like I was interrupted by 1 year of COVID. So COVID stopped me for 1 year. I think I would probably finish the book in 2, but basically it took us 3 to finish. And I think the delay also helped a lot because it gave more of a chance to redevelop, to go, to fine tune the book itself. But basically, I started in January 2020, and around that time, we started hearing about COVID. So I think maybe like 2 weeks before lockdown, I went and spent 10 days, 15 days out there, rushing around trying to get as much photography as possible. And then during lockdown, I joined forces with Dr. Robert Schick so he could do the text and also support me on the book itself. So yeah, 3 years to completion.
Did you face any problem regarding the security and political security situation and political instability in the
I
West
mean,
Bank.
it was a definite challenge. Like I didn't I encounter there were situations, for example, like I break it down to three different areas of difficulty. The first was crossing the border. It's not isn't it wasn't difficult, but it's like it just takes a lot of time. You know, you get there, you have to wait for 5, 6 hours as they screen for you. I thankfully I have a British passport, so I could
Yeah,
go, you know, and go, as many times as I liked. But like it's a tiresome thing, you know. It's not like it's like a you know like just to get into Palestine, into the West Bank or into Jerusalem, it takes 4 to 7 hours every single time. So it's exhausting,
of
you know.
course.
And you're repeatedly questioned in a very polite way, but like you know, it's just repeating the same questions. Why are you coming? Who are you staying with? Why do you want to come here? You know, and you have to give answer. Then there's a second where you get to Jerusalem itself, which is an extreme. It's one of the most tense cities I've ever seen in my life. Because you constantly see people armed running or walking around, and it's usually young people. You know, you can cut the tension in the old city with a knife. So you know, above you know the stress of crossing, you're also dealing with you know waking up in the morning and am I going to have my bags checked today? Am I going to be stopped? Am I going to be bothered that they're trying to get into the haram? And then there's number three, which is, you know, all the seven gates of the Haram itself, of the complex, is guarded by Israeli IDF, you know, security forces. And so they are just moody, you know. Sometimes they'll be like, "Why? What's this? A camera? Are you a journalist? Why are you coming here?" You know, this sort of thing. No, you
Yeah,
can't come in. They wouldn't let me in, and then I would have to like find another way in. So, you know, it was just a very tense. It wasn't horrible in the thing. You know, I did see like there was you know, I did experience violence at one point. You know, I was at one of the gates when a Palestinian tried to ki kill one of the like shootouts. It was a gun shootout behind me, meters away from me. But it's very funny because the city is so used to this violence that within literally 45 minutes, the body was cleared, the place was cleaned up, and the door was open again.
of course.
And like you know when you talk to Palestinians in East Jerusalem, the way they talk about it is so like normal, the violence, and you're
Of
just
course.
surprised. You know, he's like, "Sorry, I was late. You know, someone, you know, a settler ran over a couple of Palestinians, and we got stuck in traffic." You know, and you're like, "Oh my God."
Yeah,
So this is the level of difficulty that I experienced, but overall, I got to do it. You know, and I got in, and I wasn't really, you know, I never really got into direct conflict with any side. Basically my first 4 or 5 visits, I just used the two, like I either used the normal gates to get in or I used the tourist gates to get in and then stayed inside the haram. And then on the final 2 visits that I did, I got permission from the royal court here to help. But even they, you know, when I asked for help, they would say to me, get inside the haram, get past all the security, and then give us a call and we will help you with anything you need inside the haram because that's what we're responsible for.
of course.
Yeah.
No,
So
even they cannot help you with the IDF and Israeli security.
no, of course not. I mean, it's a different sovereign state, I guess, or you know,
Yeah.
questionable sovereign state. You know, at the end of the day. So you know, yeah. So basically, that was the challenges that I experienced with that.
How preserved is the noble sanctuary, knowing that the Israeli authorities don't allow always the repairing of historical sites and buildings within the compound. We're talking
So
about, yeah, please.
yeah, go ahead. So obviously I'm not a specialist, right? I'm a historical photographer. I befriended many people on both sides of this of the complex. You know, from what my personally experienced and what I saw was it's a game of passive aggression.
Yeah,
So the haram is really well taken care of. There's constantly you know renovation projects, but due to this passive aggression behavior, things are very slow. You know, like one example, for example, there's the manuscript lab that is built out of the one of the schools on the eastern side of the complex. It took the authorities, the Jordanians and the Palestinians, it took them 5 or 6 years just to get permission to bring the equipment into the lab. It was sitting in a port for 5 years, if but eventually it came through. So there is restoration, there is like this taking care of it, but like it's slowed down and frustrated by the Israelis. So it's not like they will say, no, you're not allowed to do this. They'll just keep on, make, the authorities run through hoops bureaucratically. 1,000 permits, 1,000 requests, 1,000 this, stuff like that. So, it happens, it works, but again, for example, another example, they only in the last 5 years finished the restoration progress on the Qibli Mosque, which is the Jami' mosque, the covered one at the south end of this complex. Do you remember the arson attack in 1969?
Oh yeah, when they destroyed the
Yeah, the
interior
Jami'.
of the mosque.
Yeah. They only just finished restoring the site, the thing. How many years has it been? 40?
Yes, we're talking about
50
a few.
almost.
Yeah, we're talking about almost 50 years.
Yeah. So now when you go in, it's completely finished. But like, that's the kind of pace that they're working
Yeah.
with. But it is happening.
What do you think about claims from multiple parties regarding the noble sanctuary? We have Christian, Muslim, and Jewish shrines in that area. I mean, not only in Jerusalem, but in many other places of the Levant.
In terms of what, like, so like, because there are many shared sites throughout the
Yes,
Levant.
exactly.
Even
I'm
in
talking
Jordan, we
about
have shared sites.
For instance, we have Ibrahimi Mosque in Hebron. This is shared
Yeah.
site.
Yeah. That's a very, very strong political question, like, and
It
it's
is.
very difficult to answer. So basically, like, I'll tell you from personal example. When a site is shared out of love, it's the right way to go about it, if you know what I mean. For example, in Jordan, we have shared sites here. We have like shrines to Al-Khadr, St. George, that are literally shared. You have one wall that has all the biblical history on it, a wall that has the Quranic history on it, and it's shared, you know. These sites, there are shared sites in Syria, there's shared sites in Palestine.
Of course.
But when one of the people who are in power wants to force their control over a site and insist that this is theirs and no others, that's when you have a problem, right?
Yeah.
So like, the Ibrahimi Mosque, to my knowledge, was basically, annexed. It wasn't asked for, not like we would give it to them, but if
Yeah.
you get what I mean.
Of course.
So, obviously when, we are like, we're all Abrahamic religions, we should all share these sites or not share them, have each person have something parallel, like, for example, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of the famous stories that happens around it is when Khalifa Umar arrived. He knew he knew that wherever he prayed in Jerusalem, they would to convert it into a mosque. So he was, when he arrived when they showed him the Holy Sepulchre, he looked around it and he decided that he would pray outside, a good, like, 50, 20 meters outside of the church, so that the Muslims wouldn't convert it. And so now there's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and the original Mosque of Al-Umar in front of it.
Of course.
And of course, there's the big debate of, the temples and the Jewish sanctity of the Temple Mount. I try to stay away from this. Like, when I had quite great difficulty with publishing my book in the West because my focus was on, like, here's this site, here are the buildings in it, here's the history of these buildings in it. There's very little evidence or layover from the temples in this site. There's very little evidence of any of the temples on the site. So my focus was on the Islamic history of the site, which makes sense to me. But every time I encountered like a publisher in the West, they would say, "Oh, this is pro-Islamic, a book. because you don't mention the temples. Well, I do mention the temples. We have a paragraph in the beginning, but the focus is on the visual aspect. When you're standing there, did you see any temples? No. I can
No,
see these
you
buildings that
have
are built over
Islamic,
the last 1400
exactly, you have
structures.
Islamic
Exactly.
buildings and different structures from
So,
Ayyubid Mamluk period.
yeah. So, it's not that we're fully denying that they were probably there, but I'm treating it like a nice visual guide for those who can't come and see this. And so, you have this sort of thinking, but like then again, like the counter argument is like, well, okay, if I do a book about the papal states, do I talk about the Roman temples underneath them,
No.
or do I talk about what the papal states and the Basilica of Saint is it George or Peter, or is it Paul? I can't remember which year. The main church in the center. Like this is the kind of argument, the counter argument you make. Of course, that you have to bear in mind that this is like this is a flashpoint. This is like the most, sought after piece of land in the all of the region. So, you have to be politically aware and like, tiptoe through it.
This
But
is
at
very
the end of the day, I
political
wanted,
thing.
yeah. At the end of the day, like I wanted to share a beautiful site as it exists now with the world, and that's what I did with this book. It was sort of because I have visited many religious sites around the world, all over around the world of different faiths, and to me, the Haram al-Sharif in Jerusalem, it was the most, it was the most powerful. It had the most like atmospheric because it wasn't just a mosque where people went to pray. It had schools in it. It had tombs in it. It was a public park for the Palestinians. It was all these things. So it added to the layers of sanctity or atmosphere to it.
Of course, I'm going to send you another link because this one is going to finish in 2 minutes. And before I start with another set of questions, I'm going to disconnect now and reconnect with a new link.
All right, sure thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I will. You also had another book. Yeah, you also had another book. I went to the promotion of your book, Unique and Outstanding, about Jordan's World Heritage Sites. It was published
yes,
in the fall of last year. We went to Jabal Abda, and in general, what was the reception of these books? Not only the one that you promoted in the fall of 2022, Unique and Outstanding.
So basically, my thing, what I like to do is I make books for me because I'm a huge book collector and I collect like photography books and things like this. So I make the books that I would probably buy if I saw them on a bookshelf. And for example, the first book, which is the Exploration of Jordan, the reception was extremely well. And by the way, till today, people still reach out to me and like, use my book to explore Jordan, which completely like fills exactly what I wanted for the book and I wanted people to use for the book. And like there's nothing been like it since. No one's really attempted to do something, and it still sells, which is really nice. It's within 5 years and the book is doing really well. And it's always like it makes my heart swell whenever like I talk to historians and people I respect who are archaeologists who love my book and use it like whenever they have like guests in town they purchase a copy and give them out to people so they can explore and learn more. Because what I also do, I think what I realized with that is I've learned to bridge the gap between the scholarly community and the general public. But we'll talk about that later. Anyway, so the reception for the second book, basically the second book was a collaboration, and more even like of a commission, because Princess Dana, she really wants to do this book. So she's the one who reached out to me, and she's the one who got the funding. So I always regard this book as her book with my help, because I brought my expertise and my eye to the project. And like she really wanted like a really high quality, beautiful book that we as Jordanians could be proud of and gift. So that was one of the big important things. And also she wanted a book to highlight because she's also a UNESCO Goodwill ambassador. So she wanted a book to highlight the sites that we already have on our list and the sites that we're, that we're submitting to be, listed. So the second book, the reception was really well done, nice. Like everyone loved it, and people loved the idea, the concept of the book, because it was more artistic than scholarly. What we
Yeah.
had done was like, we had done these massive layouts of pictures and then put 1 or 2 pages of text, which is not what I usually do, where I pump in 40 and 50,000 words of history into a book
Yeah.
alongside the pictures. This was clearly like an art book with the focus on the beauty of these sites, with an additional text written by Her Highness Princess Dana. So it was a very interesting combination. It was a whole different direction that I'd never personally thought of as well. So I love doing it. And also we had special permits during COVID. So I was going visiting these sites at sunset when everyone was packed at home and driving the streets alone, which is an extra bonus, adventure that we went on for the books. Now, this third book is so one of the things that we didn't mention earlier on was this is the first of its kind, like history photography book exploring and specifically English. Like almost no books have ever been published about the complex itself and its history. So this is the niche that I was trying to approach. I was trying to talk to like people who couldn't be there, people who are very interested in the history of the site, or are also English speakers. It's still early days. The book's only like been released in Jordan, like it's not even internationally released yet. The Jerusalem book launch will be in May, and hopefully the American and British book launches will be later in this year or possibly next year. So I've not gauged the reaction, but from the event that I did, the exhibition and book launch, people were really, really, really enjoyed it and loved it. I know you'd get a lot of people who would say, when I was a kid, I used to run behind that tree there, and they would point at the trees and they would point at the map and they would talk about their stories, their own personal stories with the sites.
I remember when we met for the first or second time in 2019, you told me that you're planning to continue traveling the world and exploring the World Heritage sites in other countries and on other continents. What happened with that project?
Yes. So I have two ongoing projects, but it's very difficult getting funding for them in terms of what I do. But the first one is a Mosques of the World book that I've been working on for the past 5 to 8 years. It's coming along, but like since I'm working on it out of my own pocket, it's sort of like taking advantage. If I get a break to go to a country, I'll go and photograph its mosques and come back. But I'm already 40% complete on that project, which is very nice. Another project which I'm very passionate about is called Architecture of Antiquity, where I've built a list with a couple of professors where we basically listed all the most preserved buildings and building elements from antiquity, so Greek and Roman mostly, or predominantly. So basically, like, where's the most preserved theater? It's in Turkey. So I go into Turkey and I photograph that, and Syria. Where's the most preserved cardo? We go to these places. So I've been building that up, but that's only about 20% complete. Obviously, I had two other books that I've just pumped out. So those are coming along, but I think those are going to be very much long-term projects, 5 to 8 to 10 years even, until I can get them really published. And then also I have other smaller projects that I'm running on. I'm currently following up with an author friend of mine. We might be doing a in the footsteps of T.E. Lawrence book, because his postgraduate thesis was about Crusader castles. So we combine, Crusader castles in the region with T.E. Lawrence's view of it and things like that. That's a possible book that will be coming along. So I'm constantly engaged in these things, and I'm trying to like do them at my own pace and through my own means. The next book that I've actually
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
The next book that I'm actually focusing on is it's quite an easy one, but like I want to do a book about Hegra and Petra, so the two Nabatean cities and their ruins. And ironically, I've already finished about 90% of the photography for both sites. So I have a detailed study of both. It's just about putting the book together and bringing in a good author, or maybe I'll do the writing. I'm not sure yet, but like So that's probably going to be the next book that I'm aiming for. And it will be an art book, like an art photography book in the vein of the UNESCO book that we spoke about.
The problem with Crusade castles is the political and security situation in Syria. I don't think that many of these sites are accessible and safe.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
So basically, my thing is that what I want to do is, this is a project. This will probably get started next year or the year after. So we have 2 years, you know, for things to calm down a little bit more. And then obviously I have more. I have, you know, castles in Palestine. I have castles in the Mediterranean. I have castles in Jordan, like that needs to be reshot and things like this. So I think that by the time Syria will become into focus, it'll be like 4 years from now or 3 years from now. And hopefully, I think what my big plan is, well, I mean, and this might be a pipe dream, but to just approach the Syrian government and say, you know, I would like, you know, someone from the Department of Antiquities, somebody from the Security Bureau, just to accompany me, you know, around to, you know, I'll give them a full list, you know, X, Y, this castle, and just go and do like a quick 2-week tour and come back. Of course, like it depends on the security situation. If it gets worse, it gets worse. But sometimes, like in my view, is, you know, if I want to produce something that people haven't seen, you got to put yourself a little bit at risk with these things. It's, for example, with the Aqsa project, you know, one of the reasons why nobody's made a book about it is because it's a dangerous site to visit. Like it's a risky site. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of risk involved. Obviously, not as bad as Syria at the moment, but I believe things will calm down, and you know, I will be able to like pull this off at some point.
Are you planning to continue exploring and documenting sites in Palestine, not only the Noble Sanctuary, but I mentioned before Ibrahimi Mosque in Hebron and
well, I already have
yeah.
I already have photographed the Ibrahimi Mosque. That's already collected, and also the mosque, the Ottoman mosque in Acre, as well as a couple of mosques. I've already done like the mosque aspect of Palestine along the coast. Honestly, I'm taking a break because that was a very, very stressful period. Like, you know, getting the shots, especially last year, like going back, I had to go back 3 or 4 times, and by the end of it, I was, you know, it was like I said, it's not direct violence or pressure. It's just the overall atmosphere that overwhelms you. You know, you feel it when you get back to Jordan, or when you leave the border. You know, you feel like, you know, this thing melts off of your shoulder because you're always tense. You're always ready for something. So maybe I do have contacts with several like really nice, good organizations in Palestine. They might be interested in doing something. I think I would be up for it, but you know, you have to overcome a lot of stress, you know, when it comes to Palestine because of the security situation out there, you know, and how to get about it, you know, and like, you know, there's also the tightrope walk of not, making sure that you do the thing right and not upset one party or the other, you know, this sort of thing.
How's the situation in Egypt?
In terms of what?
In terms of not only security, but in terms of conditions for you to work there and produce.
I've visited and photographed. Yeah, I visited and photographed Egypt several times. And I love Egypt. It's a great place to go. My focus has not been really big. I did ask for permission from the Egyptian authorities last year if I could go and photograph some of their sites at night, like do like a, you know, a same thing that I did here. But, you know, I didn't have a strong enough wasta, so I got ignored. But I'm still meaning to pursue it because I think it would be amazing. Like I've already done night photography in Saudi Arabia, so adding Egypt onto the thing would be a really interesting mix. I also have my eyes set on Iraq, but of course, Iraq, the security system is a thing. In my experience with these sites, is if you have a good person who's local and has good connections, you're set. It doesn't matter where you are, even if it's Syria or in South Sudan. If you have someone who's respected who can take you around, then you're okay. So my belief is like if I want to do Egypt or if I want to do Egypt is fine. You can possibly do it yourself. But then it's gaining access when outside of tourist hours, things like this, the extra stuff that you need help with. And my network is pretty good and strong. Like I was actually invited out in January to Siwa, like to do a tour with a number of archaeologists, but I couldn't make it. So like I do have like, you know, a network out there who are, you know, would love to have me, you know, out there and to help. So Egypt is a big thing, and so is Turkey. Like there are two big like targets on my list because they have so much antiquity in them for future projects.
I wish you all the best in upcoming period. Hopefully, you're going to be as proficient as in the last 2-3 years, despite all kinds of challenges and the pandemic. Actually, COVID hiatus was one of the biggest problems for not only you but scholars who were
Yeah, everything came to a standstill back then.
Yeah, it was a standstill.
Ironically, I managed to finish like a good 30% of the Aqsa book, and I finished about 100% of the UNESCO sites.
Yeah,
because I was local. So I actually managed to achieve a lot during that period, even though it was extremely difficult period.
Well, it was a terrible period for many professions. Now it's almost a third year since the beginning of the lockdown and a series of quarantines and security measures and pandemic measures. Thank God we overcame that, and hopefully you're going to continue with your work. It's very important because
thank you. Nothing's stopping me.
You document sites that are under different threats.
Yeah, and I also get to explore these sites for other people. For example, like the Jordan, like I donated maybe 1,000 images to Wikipedia several years ago of Jordan because you know there was a complete lack of images of certain sites in Jordan. For the Aqsa project, I donated 1,400 to the Royal Archive here, because even they like, and I did it over years. Even they went and told me like I was very happy to hear that they had shared my images with like the Ottoman archive in Istanbul and several other archives. So like there's also like a documentary aspect to this.
Of course. Did you manage to donate your images to Acor's photo?
I offered a while back, but it seems that they're backlogged with a whole bunch of archives that they've still not gone through yet. But I'm always happy to whenever they ask for it.
Well, yesterday I went to a lecture. And,
yes, I missed that one.
Well, you didn't miss much. It was totally different setting, different crowd, and different topic than what normally
the usual historical stuff.
Yeah. They're becoming more like the CBRL and IFPO. Tomorrow CBRL has a seminar that I'm planning to attend. They start at 11 o'clock, and actually I like their daily seminars and lectures at the CBRL. It works. In a way, it's more convenient and more efficient for me as a reporter to go there and prepare the text for the evening than if I go to the event in the evening. But things started to open up, and hopefully they're going to be as active as in pre-COVID phase. I wish you all the best, and we're going to continue our collaboration. I'm looking forward to seeing more of your books. And thank you for your time.
Yes, me too. All right, thank you very much. Take care. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.